6:35. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Mayor Angeloni.
Here.
Deputy Mayor McMillan.
Present.
Councilor Diamond.
Here.
Councilor Gold.
Here.
Councilor Miller.
Here.
Councilor Felicia.
Here.
Councilor Zambrano.
Here.
Okay. So tonight we have 3 departments. The first one is going to be police, and we're going to try and stick to pretty much 30 minutes on these. So this is just an overview of your budget. There is no action that gets taken tonight. It's just an opportunity for the departments to come before the council and give us a brief overview. We have not seen what the total town budget looks like yet. So absolutely no action tonight. It's an opportunity for us to talk to them and ask some key questions. All of budget deliberations will take place after April 1st, after our public hearing on April 1st. So the first one on the agenda for tonight is police. So I will turn the floor over to the chief.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and council. Bear with me tonight. There's a code that's been circling around, so I'll try to keep it to myself over here. So what you have before you and in your packet is the operational 2025-26 request, as well as our capital request. I also provided you a sheet that I just called options notebook, which I'll kind of delve into a little bit further as we go through. And I think the 3 boxes that you see at the top will make a little bit more sense as we go through it. Our approach this year was really to deliver a baseline budget. We met with our staff, we get the needs and wants, and the overwhelming response was back is that, Chief, we've been so fortunate. We really can't ask for anything more this year. It was more of a humble opinion that came back for our staff. They're very blessed to be able to work in that building. And they know the cost of what happens is our view is, when one department gets many asks, there's other departments that take a backseat. So this year, we wanted to deliver a baseline budget to present to the council. Obviously, the biggest drivers in our budget are personnel services. Those are all controlled by the CBA, which was signed earlier this year. And if you look at that front page, I break down how that comes up for costs. So the total request for this budget year is $526,230. It's an 8.6% increase. Most of that is obviously attributed to wages, which is $443,201. So there's no extra added line items for overtime or anything like that. The only increases were if an employee had reached a certain marker in the CBA and was able to get more days for that CBA for vacation days and whatnot. And then obviously that line item will increase. And then their increase in wages carried through those line items. As you move down through the budget, you'll see the next is materials and supplies. Office supplies, we actually kept flat, but actually minus $34 from last year. Technical supplies, I actually dropped by $3,000. We had to cut some things out of there. Uniform and clothing stayed the same. Food, we had a small increase because we're hosting a lot more events, so we're able to get more training in using that meeting space. I think if anybody follows us on social media, we're hosting something there at least monthly, if not weekly. We have a lot of our organizations that are coming in and use the space, and that's what it was intended for, more engagement opportunities and training opportunities for our personnel. Where you're supposed to get a little crazy in this budget is you start to get into heating and fuel. And what I've only been able to do is work off assumptions of what we've been spending on fuel so far, and then obviously multiplying that out and dividing it to try to come up with some kind of monthly expense for that. Originally last year we budgeted for $13,600 for the oil, or for propane now. Obviously in tracking that, we're exceeding that number. That was just a best guess estimate at the time. We're expending more fuel due to some of the HVAC issues we had there. So where that's going to fall the next year to 2 years is still yet to be seen. But I can only work off the averages that we have on the table to propose budgetary numbers for that. So that was an increase just alone in that one line item of $4,560. Again, just an estimate, I don't know where we're gonna have to. Books and publications, we use those for the manuals in the state Connecticut law books that go up to our officers. Small increase there, and that's just due to inflationary numbers. Total for materials and supplies, that whole section only went up 2414. And that was due to the other cuts we were able to make in some of those other areas. As you get into contractual services, you'll see that's our next big increase. And the largest increase in that area is the CASER contract we had. Some of you are on the council, and we presented that a couple of years ago. It's a 5-year contract. It's a $50,000 commitment from the town every year. We're going to year 3 of that contract. And in other years, I have been able to cover that with operational expenditures and cuts. That's just, I can't cover that, the cost this year. So we had to add that back into a line item. So out of a total increase in contractual services of $80,000 to $15,000, $50,000 of that is that contract that was committed to the town several years ago. If there's other funding sources that are available that come and can cover that, then obviously we can cover that in the budget. That is going to cover that operational position. The next line item was a tricky one for us this year, was the telephone. Due to the numerous vendors we had moving into the new building, we ended up with repeated service orders, what it kind of came out to. We were getting charged duplicate triple accounts. It took us about 4 months to iron out. I got pages and pages and books of bills for the fiber and the phone. We've now got that ironed out to the exact cost, which is good. But it is increased to $8,520. The one for the electric, we are basing that off an average once again of what we're using for the building, but we're also in that estimate we've been using more electricity than we did this year because of the HVAC issue. So the best guess I can give you is off that average. I estimated it last year at 40,000. We are going to finish because it falls right this year. We may be $50 left in the account. So I'm going to go back with the 40,000 request as last year, and we'll see how that holds up. But as we talked about during this building project, it's going to take us about 5 years to actually figure out good hard numbers as we keep moving along. When you get down to equipment maintenance, within that we've had some contractual increases with NextGen. That's our CAD RMS provider. They also provide support, and they also manage our IT server room up there. They went up 5%. We had a large increase in copying and printing, even though we've gone streamline, we're paperless. The only thing I can think of is that we weren't getting charged a fair amount for the years ahead. We now have technology that tracks every piece of paper printed out that comes along. So we had to increase that line item to match up where we were. The generator contract was an increase from last year. We're still working on vendors for that, but I'm going off best guess estimates of the numbers that we have to meet that piece of equipment. Once you get into facility maintenance, we start to see larger increases in contractual obligations. So we were tasked by the council that we need to maintain this building funded by the taxpayers. Along with that became more contracts for the equipment that we have in there. Part of doing this is I walked the building with Fran, Dan, and Kenny, and we went from each side of the building and looked at every piece of equipment to estimate and the need for what that service was going to be. So some of the things you see on that list are the train HVAC monitoring. That is something that the PBPC requested that we carry for another year due to the HVAC issues in there. We have an elevator now, so that's at an estimated cost of $6,000 a year, state and federal regulated to have that done. We have a sprinkler system in there now that's at an annual rate of about $2,000. Irrigation, which is a small fee. We have still working on what it costs for the cleaning supplies and maintenance. So at the old building we used to pay about $26,000 a year for the cleaning company. Originally when we went into this budget for the new building, we went out with your permission, we hired a part-time employee. The cost of that is going to be about $23,000. So we're actually cleaning a 3 times larger building for less money. Now there's still supplies in there that we need to do, but we dropped that account by $15,000. We're holding about $10,000 to cover the supplies for the equipment, obviously to maintain that facility. The HVAC contract is something that was asked of Public Works because it's so integral, everything's so scientific now on the computer. They didn't feel that they could give it the proper maintenance at this time, and that's what I remember. This was also requested from the PVPC to maintain that entire facility, so that's the number that's provided there. We have an IT battery backup. That's about a $120,000 machine. It provides a 4-hour battery backup for our complete, and that requires annual twice-a-year maintenance of $7,000. Some of the smaller items you'll see after that are next-gen capital support, as I said, a 5% increase. We switched over some different investigative softwares. We cut out the more expensive ones. We found better softwares that will produce better outcomes. That came at a very cheaper rate. Once you get into professional development, there's some very small increases in there. That's just due to the increased cost of certifications and training. Obviously, we're mandated by the state of Connecticut to upkeep those trainings. And with inflation and everything else, you see a small increase in that. The last big item was other contractual. We have a property tax at the Clintonville Tower on 222 Clintonville Road that was not previously budgeted in last year's budget. We have met with the assessor and come up with an assumption for that next year's fee, which we're responsible for. We had a small increase to the regional SWAT traffic and computer crimes team, and these are obviously, the SWAT team is now up to 7 towns, the traffic team is 6, and the computer crimes team is approximately 6. Largely due to that increase was recommendations that came out from the Inspector General's office after the Officer of Bomb shootings in North Haven. They come out with recommendations that help better protect the risk and liability of the town and the officers who respond to these scenes. What was noted in them is they were there for over 20 hours. Our body cameras only last now for about 11 to 12 hours. So we had to come up with a very digital format to be able to continue this, the recording of the officers' actions and what they're doing on scene. That requires some new technology, and that's why there's an increased cost based off the recommendations that every town is contributing the same amount for. So long and short, what you have is what I consider a baseline budget outside of contractual obligations, facility maintenance, and current systems to maintain operations of the facility. The department is only requesting off of what is outside of our control, $4,230 increase. If we flip back to the front page, it's kind of where I give you that outlook. So there's different ways to, and it's not really options, but there's different ways to view what this budget really accounts for. So you have the total increase. You can take off the base numbers from the 526,230, that'd be 8.6%. The option 2 or view 2 is the calculations based with the $125,000 reimbursement, which we'll receive from the federal cops hiring grant this year. So as of for the first number, that's not accounted for. The second number is where it gets accounted and drops it down to a 6.56% increase, 318%, or $318,000, which is contractual obligations and collective bargaining agreement. View number 3, that calculation is based on the $125,000 reimbursement for the federal cops hiring grant, and then funding the Axon contract from another fund. If you have another funding source in town that would be available, we can pay that earlier this year instead of July, and that drops the total request increase number 5.74.
Okay.
Kind of a quick overview. Any questions on that?
Okay, so during this fiscal year that we're in right now, I know you came before the council, the police department came before the council, and we added a police officer under the COPS grant. So we have 3 under the COPS grant, correct?
We have 3 and we're approved for 4 from the federal government. So
Right.
what the COPS grant says is that you can You can only use the grant to increase the numbers of personnel. It's not to supplant the numbers of personnel that you already have employed in town.
Right.
Because it was already budgeted for, that position was already budgeted for in last year, we were technically increasing our staff by hiring that officer under the COPS hiring grant. And we weren't supplanting them, we just have been taking a diligent time of coming up with the right replacement individual to fill that.
Well, then we had a retirement during the year, which we have not.
Which is the second part I was referring
Okay.
to, so, those funds wash themselves out for us, and so there's no increase to this current year's fiscal request.
Correct, but there's, the replacement for that officer is in your budget for next year.
Is in our budget for next year, so. And even under personnel, to hold the line as tight as I can, is that we have the 2 new officers that came out of the academy. They are going from grade B, which they will be for the rest of this fiscal year and next fiscal year up until January. So what I did was I calculated their salary at grade B, and then in grade A, they turn over in January 2nd or 3rd or something like that. So instead of just budgeting them for the total amount of grade A, we were able to hold the cost down a little bit by splitting it up into the 6 months.
Okay. So the replacement on the retirement, that needs to happen in order for the COPS grant, because the one we replaced, or the new one we added during this year was COPS grant. So we have to maintain the person where we were at.
Yeah, so every 3 months I file federal disclosures in accordance with any federal grant. And that's something we have to stipulate along the way, so they track our numbers on that. So without funding that, then you're in violation of losing the funding with the federal government.
Okay. And Anthony, how does the COPS grant, the money that we get for that it doesn't go against?
Doesn't net, no, it just shows the general fund revenue in the revenue section, federal grant.
Okay.
This current year, you got $83,333.
For the 2 that went
For the 2
through the
officers.
academy?
Yep, and then next year will be, with correct funding, will be $125,000.
Okay. Okay. Does anyone else have any other questions before he goes on to capital?
How long do the body cameras and tasers last? How often do you have to replace those?
Under the contract, we get new cameras every 2.5 years. And then that comes with, so if they break down, we send them right out and we have a new one within 24 hours. That's part of the contract. And that goes along with the tasers as well. So at the end of this contract, we'll be on their newest version. But obviously, I'll be back before you when we discuss that, a couple of years from now, where we're going to take that next.
And are those mandated by this?
Mandated by the police accountability bill. So we originally did that project in 2018, even before the police accountability bill, and that was done off a grant from the federal government that came into the state. So we applied through the state, and we installed those free of charge for the first year, and then we obligated after that to carry on that program.
And now it's mandated.
It's mandated as of 2020.
So we don't have an option.
There's no option.
Right, okay. So it's just really the funding source.
Yeah.
As you indicated in your.
Yeah, and obviously the companies that supply the cameras know that it's mandated pretty much in just about every state in the nation. So there's not a lot of bargaining when you start to go down that route.
Okay. Okay.
For the capital request, we just have one request this year. And that's the purchase of 2 new patrol cars. We've been on that steady pace, which has helped us maintain our fleets. And even with the increase in staff, I have not come back to purchase any extra cars. We can maintain our fleet with, if we can stay on this continuous. We plan to stay with the Dodge Durangos. It saves the town about $20,000 after outfitting because the Ford Explorers are more expensive. So we request the outfit and purchase 2 new Dodge Durangos only for patrol for $128,500 next year.
Okay.
And obviously, they're replacing vehicles with 150,000 miles or more on them. So we get about 5 years life out of the vehicle. So that's what I have for operational and capital. I got one more thing after that if you have any other questions before I move on. So on a side note from this operational budget is we have the opportunity to join a special task force within the state of Connecticut, newly formed since COVID. My job is to go out and find ways to bring back more opportunities, technology, and personnel to the town without driving up costs and without it being unfunded from other sources. So we've been looking at this hard over the past 4 months, and then we were approached by the Connecticut State Police. The colonel called us, and then we had to sit down with this personnel. They revived this unit that is approximately 25 to 30 personnel, and the focus is opioids, the car thefts, and then any other concerns we have in town. So let's say there is massage parlors was a concern in town. We bring that task force in. They focus solely on that one topic. If we had businesses in town that were concerned that might be selling cannabis or cannabis-related products outside the statutes of the law, we can focus on those areas. We get a whole team to come in and supply us with technology and personnel by assigning a person to go to this unit. One of the biggest factors we looked at this unit is the supervision, so that's really important to me, knowing that when we're assigning our officers outside of our jurisdiction, that they're going to be properly supervised, and that we can also have the belief that the operations and the things in the nature they're going to be sent to do are done safely and done right. And that's another reason why we've chosen or elected to go with the BSI, as I call it, but it's a Bureau of Special Investigation. We do get some other benefits other than the personnel and the technology and the resources that are available to that unit. It comes with a vehicle free of charge from the state of Connecticut, which is a nice benefit for us. And it also comes with a $1,700 a month stipend that's funded through the state opioid fund. So I think it would be extremely beneficial for our residents in town to be able to take this unit and assign it to or assign issues that we want to tackle in town and not tie up the services or our personnel that really don't have the specialties of investigating. When these officers go there and they get this training, they now bring that back when they eventually rotate out of the unit. Another benefit of the state police unit is that we can pull our personnel back at any time. So if we become in a man shortage, I call up there, I said, you're back on duty, and they roll out, and there's no, they understand, and they're in the same boat as we are with personnel, and that's why we have to regionalize our services throughout the area. So we can start that project earlier than waiting for July, if that was possible. I would be requesting about $25,000 out of the opioid funds that we have in town, which is about $100,000, I think, that has come in, maybe just shy of that. It'll give us the opportunity to really get these services and get our officer rolling. It's still going to take a couple of weeks. They still have to go through extensive background checks and things of that nature, and then become acclimated into the unit itself. But we definitely have some issues in town. We have some large seizures of narcotics that I can't get too delved into, but that we're working with other state and federal agencies, and it's become a concern where I think we need other resources at our disposal to handle it properly.
So this, Jimmy and I, the chief and I have been talking about this because I received an email from the state saying, they just sent out a notice, and it included all the towns as far as what you had in the opioid fund. So for the last 2 years, we have received in the mid-40s, and really have not spent a lot of that money. And so in talking to the town manager and the chief, And what the chief has found out is that the state police also use that fund, the money that is coming from the state, to supplement this special task force that they have. So, personally, I think it would be a good use of that money, because what's going to happen if we don't start using that money, the state's going to see that and they're going to start pulling that away and giving it to other towns on there. And I think this is a good use of the money. The person is already in the budget, and this would just be able to start that police officer earlier, and we could pay for it using the funds in that money up until July 1st, then it's already built into his budget. But the money, the stipend that we get back from the state, the $1,700, could also be put back into the opioid, supplement that whenever we have that person to kind of pay the account back, so we had it for other uses on there.
There's also the availability of asset forfeiture, and that comes in the form if the officer from our town initiates the case and the case gets dispersed of, and there's assets there that get forfeited, the town would receive 30% of whatever that asset forfeiture was. If you're just part of the team and you're not the lead investigator, then the town would be eligible for 10% of whatever that asset forfeiture was. So if you watch the news today, the Hartford PD seized $117,000 in one stop up there today. We're not Hartford PD today, but that's just an example of the amount of money that's out there. I know from one of our neighboring towns who's been in task forces, they have over $400,000 in an account sitting there now that they use to replace vehicles and equipment and things of that nature. So there is the possibility for other funding sources within it that might be available for use for town funds.
So the chief is just presenting it to us now. This will be on our agenda for next week. So it gives you some time to think about it and ask any questions, or at next week's meeting if you come up with some questions. But in order to institute this, we would have to take a vote on it. So it'll be on our agenda for next week.
So this is kind of a three-step phase approach, and Carrie could join me up here. And so the initial phase is, right, we want to get the people that are selling the drugs. The secondary phase is when we respond for overdoses and things of that nature, and we have that equipment through the Narcan and stuff to treat it. The third phase is really the aftercare. So, and Carrie is more, yeah, can elaborate more. But it's really a wholesome approach, right? So we want to stop it initially. If we don't stop it initially, then we're going to get the overdoses, and we can treat those with the best medical care that we have. But then the third stage is the most important time after an overdose, is just after it occurs. So we've seen a lot of benefits throughout the state of Connecticut. This isn't a model that we're coming up with, but it's provide that aftercare, afters of education, and getting them the resources to hopefully curb this behavior and get them into treatment, so we don't see second and third and fourth overdoses from that facility. What you also see is they're not the only ones using, usually in the residence, right? Usually multiple users within. So it gives us another opportunity to engage the other people in there before they suffer the same fate that we responded for initially. You want to jump in here, Carrie?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've discussed before.
Carrie, I think you have to come up to a microphone just so that the TV, they're recording.
So what we've discussed previously, we had like a little brainstorming meeting a couple years ago to discuss different ways to spend down some of this opioid funding that we've received. One of the ideas that was presented from BH Care's APW program, the event Alliance on Prevention and Wellness, was a post-overdose outreach person. It's an idea that, with my background, I think is a fabulous idea. The PD also agreed at the time. I think, Anthony, you were part of that meeting as well. And what that person does is, when there is a crisis like an overdose, there's a small window of opportunity to really engage somebody in recovery services or support services, kind of that strike when the iron's hot idea. So a good 48, 72 hours within that window, to send somebody out to the house to do a face-to-face outreach. I spoke with Pam Motti from APW this week. She's been piloting these programs for 3 years in surrounding communities and says that the impact has been significant. So I think this is a great opportunity with the proposal of a BSI officer to work in conjunction with an outreach person who could get referrals from that officer, go to these homes. They can provide education, whether it's recovery options, it's Narcan training, family support, or in worst case scenarios, grief counseling. They could increase the prevention awareness, and we could do a better job of mitigating risk in our community. With BH Care opening offices here in North Branford, I think we have a couple different options on how we could proceed, and I know that my colleagues and PD would work together to try to figure out a way to get this collaboration threefold working, and I would be more than happy to be a part of that as well. So whether we subcontract with BH Care for a position, for a person to come out and do this, or we add to one of our departments a position that we supervise per diem to do these outreach calls, I think it would be worthwhile.
So that would all be funded through the opioid program, so it's not a budgetary.
APW said that at this time, their full-time outreach person, it's hard to say how many hours because it, of course, ebbs and flows. But they spend approximately $30,000 to $35,000 a year on this position. I think that with our scale, I think we could look at a $20,000 to $25,000 expenditure out of our opioid funding money.
Okay.
Good.
Yeah, thank you.
Does anyone have any other questions for the chief?
Yeah, I do, Chief. So while you're describing this this new task force, or I'm not sure if that's the right word, but does one of our personnel works around the state in this task force, in this group?
Yeah, they're region-based. We would assign them to that region-based team.
So they're not available for us unless we need, like, I think you made a statement.
We can call back at any time.
I just wanted to clarify that
Yeah.
to make sure I understood it right.
Yeah, so if we run into another situation where, like we did this past year, where I was down 5 people for most of the year,
Yeah.
we can call them back. There's no penalty to us. Obviously, we're just not going to get the $1,700 a month because we're not going to have somebody
Right.
staffed with that unit. But that there is the availability to switch somebody in and out like that.
Okay. Is it a rotating process?
Eventually, it'd be rotating. Usually, you have the person in there for about a year, so it takes a couple months just to get acclimated into the program, and then for them to start working cases. But we're not going to leave somebody in there for 5-10 years. That doesn't do us the benefit of being able to rotate other officers in and then get that training and bring it back to our personnel. So,
Okay, thanks.
and some of the equipment they have is something that we could never afford here in all my years. Capital requests, we never make it there, so it's nice tools there.
So Jim, when our officer goes to the task force, basically now we have that task force that would work for us as a group when we need them. So I will say sacrifice one of our officers some of the time. We actually get a group of officers that'll team up on something really important when we needed it.
You get the full team at our disposal, so something spurs up out of the moment and we have something and it could just be a community concern. It doesn't have to be, rash auto thefts. It's something that the group is beneficial in investigating and putting a stop to, then they come out and they have at it for whatever that issue is.
Normally how it usually works is you have that task force, and then we get a hot hit on a house or something like that. The chief will reach out to his officer there and let them know what's going on, and then they have their separate surveillance going on, keeping in touch with the chief what's going on with that whole area. And then when the time comes, they call them in, and they do their thing, and they tie in all the pieces and focus on that point. And then if there's something else that's going on, chief needs them, he makes that phone call, and they come in and help out as best they can. They all help each other out, so that's how it usually works.
So we're not using our resources, we're just using their resources.
We become part of the resource. I would say it's more of a partnership, so we add to the resource. That's pretty good.
All right.
Thank you, Madam.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. Next up is Park and Rec. So, who's ever coming up to the hot seat here? Carrie, Steve, Sarah, are you all coming or just one?
I'm gonna make Sarah roll forward.
Okay.
Oh, God, yeah.
They have the document that, this.
Thank you. I like it, thank you. Always.
Hey. How you doing? Oh, I'm not saying anything. I got other things on my mind.
Put the air conditioning on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It was 80 in here.
Yeah.
We're in Florida.
Well, I was wondering if maybe we need an HVAC maintenance program.
Okay, the floor is yours.
All right, thank you. So, good evening. I'd like to begin by thanking the town council, my town manager, and our town departments and residents for your continued support over this past year, especially the past several weeks as our department has experienced some transitions. This year, we focused on developing programs and events to expand our reach, from new events like our Autumn Nights at Augur concert series and Cookies with a Cop, to new programs like our adaptive dance and our weekly support to our homeschool families in our community. We continue to strengthen our relationships with our fellow departments, police, fire, public works, and libraries, as well as fostering the growth of our community connections with organizations, businesses, and the individuals and families we serve. We've continued our partnerships with local nonprofit organizations to administer programs such as the Farmer to Family food boxes for the entire town. We continue to collaborate with Beyond the Horizon to offer growing sensory-friendly events for individuals in our community with special needs. And additionally, we became certified through the Sibling Support Project to be one of only 9 organizations in the state to offer Sib Shop events. Our Parks, Recreation, and Senior Center team has worked hard to fine-tune our transportation services, and recently our staff completed a PASS trainer certification. It's a passenger assistance, safety, and sensitivity training. We currently provide medical transportation 3 times a week, have increased our grocery shopping services to twice a week, and we strive to meet the growing needs of the seniors in our community. Luckily for me, and probably for you as well, Jessie Caetano began this year's budget before she departed, and she did outline the capital projects that are before you this evening. I just want to say that I'm incredibly proud to be leading this department and that I've been able to witness the growth that we've done as a team firsthand. I can't wait to see what this team will accomplish together in the upcoming year. In your handout that I gave you, we kept it pretty simple this year. Just wanted to remind you what our mission was at Parks, Recreation, and Senior Center. I've listed for you on the connectivity and accessibility page all of the organizations and departments that we have continued to partner with and develop partnerships with over the past year. Just a quick glance at our impact report. I want to just point out that we have one incredibly lovely pavilion on there. It looks fabulous, and everybody has been asking. They can't wait to use it. Some pictures to highlight this year, and I just put the bottom line number on the last page for you. I know that on your laptops, you do have our budget. We have made some changes and adjustments to the numbers that you have on your laptop. They haven't been adjusted as of yet, but we are looking at only a 5.14% overall change. Yeah. So I'm sure that you've already looked at our budget and
Well, actually, we just got it tonight, so.
Oh,
we
you just
did-
got it tonight?
Yes, so we have not.
So I'll give you the Cliff Note version.
That would be great.
The Cliff Note version is the vast majority of the increases that you see are contractual. Like we were discussing, like Chief Lovelace was discussing before, they're just the adjustments that are made for our heating oil, our electricity, our just our basic services, paper goods to run the department in the building. The two areas I'm sure that will stand out to you and I'm happy to talk about tonight are, and of course anything else you want to talk about, are the increases to staffing. We did our best to present as flat a budget as possible, but the increases that we have proposed are directly related to the growing need to provide quality, inclusive services and programs. So those two sections will be, you'll see the increase to the van driver position. So currently, we are splitting 19 hours a week between 2 drivers. We have a total of just 19 hours. By increasing their combined hours, with neither of them going over the 19, to a combined 30 hours, we'll be able to provide more medical transportation, as well as meet basic needs like requests for our seniors to get banking done, go to legal appointments, self-care appointments. And it's actually not just for our seniors. We also provide transportation for individuals with disabilities as well. Oftentimes, we're finding that we have wait lists and we're unable to accommodate additional requests with our limited driver hours of only 19 hours a week. So there's that request there. Secondly, there's an addition of an increased need for paraprofessional supports. Our summer programming, previously called summer camp, we are now calling summer rec crew. The supports that are needed in that program continue to grow. Last year at any given time, we had at least 3 children that required one-on-one support, and I only had 1 full-time paraprofessional on staff. We believe that every child deserves a summer camp experience, so we're asking for the council's help by supporting 2 full-time seasonal paraprofessional positions so we could continue to provide inclusive services for our families. So those are the 2 areas where you'll see the biggest jump.
Okay, so I noticed in your park ground maintenance, it looks like adjusted for 24-25 is 10,000, and now we're up, we have 30,000 in here. So according to what we have in front of us, is that accurate, Anthony?
I'd have to check. I
mean, it says here adjusted
Yeah,
10,000, but now it's 30, so that's an increase of 20,000. And just wondering what the history has been on park maintenance.
That's a great question.
And I know you're very new to this, and it's okay. I'll throw it out there now because we're going to get more into the budgets once we, in April, so you have time to look at that and
I
talk
will
to Anthony.
absolutely look at that and try to understand it better.
Okay, that's
I'm
fine.
not exactly sure why that number's there.
The
Okay.
10,000 is the accurate number for the budget currently.
So, but you'll have time to research some of that and then
I
then come back on that. And then can you also, in your research on equipment rental, which is basically mostly the porta potties, it looks like here. So budgeted for 24-25 is 28.3, but the estimate by the end of the year shows 16.8. So that's quite a drop.
I don't think that's accurate. I know that,
Okay.
I could double check. We just got our billing for those, so I could go through and I could double check that for you, for sure.
Okay, I mean, because the department request for next year is more in line with what the adjusted total budget is. But I'm just looking at where it's estimated to be at the
I
end
know
of
that Jesse had a contract with them for a reduced price, and I believe that this was the year that it increased to full price, so
Okay,
I'll double check.
okay. So what was presented to us tonight is just your operating budget, no capital.
The capital's not in there.
Is not in
Well,
here.
let me tell you about capital.
Yeah, so if you could just give us a heads up on capital.
So we had proposed 4 capital projects, one of which was the resurfacing of the courts at Northford Park. Those courts are due to be done. They were completed in fall of 2019, and in order to stay compliant with the warranty, they need to be resurfaced every 5 to 7 years. So as of this fall, we'll be at the 6-year mark. So that was a priority for our capital projects this year. I believe the price, I actually don't have them attached to this either. My mistake, my apologies. I believe it was 86. 85? Oh, good, I was close. 85.
85,000.
For the resurfacing of the courts at Northford.
It's tennis and basketball? It's
Correct,
both? It's-
yes.
It's all of them?
Correct. Yep, so that was the first one that we had put forward. An additional capital project to Northford Park was to redo the lighting at Northford Park, to put it in line with the lighting that we did at STW. That is a little bit more costly than the resurfacing. At an estimate, Jessie had gotten that estimate prior to her departure, and it was approximately $600,000 to redo all of the lighting for Northford Park.
Not just the court?
Not just the courts, the entire park.
Okay.
Not the soccer field. The soccer field is not included.
Not.
No, the existing lights that are there to redo those. So it doesn't include the soccer field. but it's the
Baseball
parking-
field?
It's the parking lot around the playground, the tennis and the basketball.
600,000?
Correct.
That would be changing complete, all new lights?
I believe so.
And is that going, my guess is it going to LEDs?
Yes,
Which we do not have there right now?
Correct.
Correct. Okay.
correct.
So if you went to these new lights, did you actually do a cost savings from what we have to the LEDs?
I have not, but I can. The third capital project, I'm sorry, are there more questions about lights?
Yeah, I just have one question.
Yeah.
If we redo the lights to something more efficient, are there programs out there that we can get reimbursements from?
I'm sure that there are. This was a project that Jessie had started before she left, and I'm trying to pick up where she left off. I'm sure that there are, and I could certainly explore that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank
Yeah, being that, if I just want to address that too. If it were in UI territory, I would,
Yeah.
you know, it's in Wallingford Electric territory, so there might be abbreviated opportunities, but we would certainly those, sure.
Can I interject on this?
Yes.
So the issue on the reason why,
You just state your name and position.
Steve Torino,
You're here as-
Conifer Drive.
Well, you're
forget
here
where I
as
live.
chair of the.
Oh, yeah, chairman of the Park Rec Commission. So this is, yeah. The way we understand Northford Park is, it's, the way the lighting is set up, you have two different courts that go in two different directions. So it's more in-depth of switching over than it would be Memorial or STW. So if we're gonna do it, this is the year to do it because we're resurfacing. That's why we put this forward. In our preliminary meetings, we think we might be able to get it down. I spoke with Jesse a couple more times. 4 was safe. She put the additional bump ups to get to 6 for this year, but it's still a big price tag. But if you're going to do it, you know, we're not resurfacing for another 5 to 7 years. So keep that in mind. If you're doing it, do it now. If not, scrap it.
Put it on the binder.
Yeah. But it's not a straight shot with the lights. You require less lights, more powerful to hit like a T as opposed to Memorial in STW where, you know, it's rectangle. Just
It's a different configuration.
so it's yes, different switch boxes, et cetera, et cetera.
So you're saying the excavating for the lighting would affect the courts? Part of the courts would be dug up?
Maybe a little easier.
It
Because
would
that's
be easier
post-intention
because of the resurfacing.
resurfacing. Because this is good. If they're going to resurface any cracks, stuff like that, they're going to fix that now. They're not going to. That's the point of keeping this warranty. So if they're going to excavate anything, go for broke and get it all done.
So they might have to literally excavate across the court?
If there's something substantial. But if we're going to do the lights, there's that gap in between the basketball courts up front and the tennis courts in the back. There's a little area, but the shed, if you want to call it, the power box switch for the lights are closer to the parking area as opposed to, if you go to Memorial or STW, they're right on the fence. This is a little farther away.
Do we know how old those lights are? I apologize if I cut somebody off.
Probably as old as, you know, the old rotary phone. I don't know. I'm just being facetious.
No, I'm just wondering, because if we do, you know, if we have a lot to consider this year, if we do need to push it off another 5 to 7 years, you know, if they're only 15 years old, that's one thing. If they're 30 years old, that's another. So it's just curious.
I don't know, but I could try to find out for you, for sure.
So would this be replacing just the heads or replacing the mass and the heads?
So the last conversation, I believe, even the poles, everything, scrapping and starting again.
So it's a complete change up.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the benefit?
So the benefit for one is efficiency. And I would imagine, and I'm maybe speaking out of turn, but I would imagine that it would be a similar configuration and setup that we have at STW where they have they're not on all the time, and they have the button where they're the LED lights that people can just set for an hour at a time to use the basketball and the tennis. I know that we've also had over the years multiple complaints because the court lights are there's actually one in particular that is facing towards a resident's home. I think somebody on the council could attest to that, it's just on in the middle of the night and it's not positioned properly and it shines into someone's house. We've tried to fix that, but these lights would be positioned through a GPS system like the ones at STW. So aesthetically, they would look better. Efficiency.
So that the current lights, they cannot be adjusted and turned off?
I would have to defer that to Danny's here. I thought I saw him, but I think the timer is what it is. It's an antiquated system. If you know from Carrie and Jesse's previous presentations, COVID, post-COVID, these courts are really being used a lot more. I mean, it was packed this morning at SDW. I'm assuming it's packed now.
So STW is packed now.
When we tried to make this transition, we kind of thought of getting away from this multi-use type style court, focusing sport-specific at different locations, set up.
And we did eliminate tennis at STW, so we
I
don't
was-
have tennis at Northford.
Yeah, I was trying to think of a creative way to say that, because pickleball is in such a high demand. Same thing with the basketball. Memorial's been used quite a lot. I know people have come back to the commission multiple times asking to extend the lights. I think SDW might even be 1 in the morning. It's a little wild. I'm not into pickleball, but
Well, I will certainly look into all of these questions that you had regarding these, so I'll be more prepared for our next workshop.
yeah, it's something to factor. This is, like Councilman Miller said, this is the shot to do it if they're going to be taking this courts offline, be done with it.
So you had two, you said you had a third, what was your third?
I have actually 4.
Oh,
We're at
yeah,
the halfway point.
Okay.
So the third one was a request for picnic tables, specifically to be used on the Augur property, that we could, it was $20,000 for new picnic tables that we could use for the Autumn Nights at Augur concert series. So when families come for an evening of entertainment, they have a place to sit and have dinner. We could also use them for the Potato and Corn Festival. We had some, but just over the years, we've lost them.
Have you approached the high school and seen if their shop class can help with that?
I have not.
Well, they were, the problem with the wood ones is they rot and they can't fold up and be stored. So they were looking, you were looking for a different,
Composite, some type of like,
yes, and something that can be easily stored. And so it's,
Aluminum or something light?
well,
Well, that potentially too. I mean, that's something I would work with Public Works to see, like, what we do have for storage, what's easy for them to, because it's ultimately our Public Works crew who is going to be shifting them for POCO or Autumn Nights or any other activities or events that we decide to hold out there, so.
and we can also look at maybe a combination
Absolutely, for
of
sure.
them, so that some are, like the wood ones could be out more often, they're not as easy to store, but we might be able to
Right, yeah.
do both and work in conjunction with the schools.
For sure. The fourth capital that we added, it was sort of a last minute decision, but it makes sense in reference to what I was saying before about the growing needs of our senior center especially, and the transportation services and the request for appointments. Currently we have a fleet of 4 buses, 2 8-passengers, a 13, and a 24. One of the 8 passengers has repairs that are now unrepairable, so it's going to be pulled from the fleet. And our 24 passenger is aging rapidly. So that's going to leave us with an 8 and a 13. I know that we've applied for grant vehicles in the past, which has been a tedious and lengthy process. It's taken years from start to finish to apply and actually receive the vehicle. So we went ahead, and the bus company that makes the buses for the grant vehicles, I reached out to them and got a quote for a 16-passenger vehicle. So we have a larger capacity vehicle. So that would give us an 8, a 13, and a 16 to replace the 8 and the 24 that we're going to retire. And that quote was $125,000 for a wheelchair accessible 16-passenger vehicle. That was our fourth capital.
So on the vehicles, I know you need you need a CDL license, right?
For
Or
some.
not? For some. So the one that you're proposing, do you need a CDL?
For a 16 passenger, you do. And all of our drivers have CDLs, with the exception of one. They have a public service, a passenger endorsement. So they can drive the 8 and the 13, just not the 16. But myself, Sarah, Kathy Poston, and one of our drivers all have CDLs.
Okay.
And we use those vehicles for larger trips for our seniors, especially like Mohegan Mondays. So instead of having to take two buses, because if we take the two buses, if we have to take an 8 and a 13, then we can't do medicals on that day when we're down to two buses. We're gonna need our daily transportation. It'll really limit us.
Okay.
Carrie, a couple of years ago, or a few years ago, we bought, I believe, one off of the state consortium. Have we looked into that and?
I did consult with Anthony and he put it on his radar. There's nothing that meets our needs currently.
Okay.
So we are continuing to explore that avenue as well. That is where we got our 24 passenger. Yes.
How many years ago was that?
4?
The party bus was West Hartford, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I think that was 4 years ago. I think it was 2021 when we got that bus. But it's required a lot of, I mean, it's served us well for what we had gotten it for. I think it was 12. I mean, it was
Yeah, it was cheap.
I want to say $12,000. It was very reasonable. It served us well. But with just the increased maintenance with its age, the estimated life expectancy left on it is maybe 2 to 4 years. So
I think there's two different things we're talking about. The larger bus we bought from the town of West Hartford. And we bought a state bus as well.
Okay.
Which was new.
Which was new.
That was through
the
a grant.
Right.
And that took almost 3 years to get.
Correct.
So that's not one that will replace, that one we.
No, we have that grant vehicle still,
Right.
yes. And one of them, actually, the 8 passenger will end. The 13 passenger. Oh, the 13 passenger is in December. So then it'll no longer be leased through the grant program. It'll be ours.
Okay. So that's the newest?
No, that's the second. The newest one is the 8 passenger. That's the one that took 3 years to get. It was a long time.
Okay.
Carrie, that could go on a payment plan, right? Like a 5-year lease, new van?
Sure. Why not?
We finance annually, whether it's Board of Ed technology, we can, if the council blesses, we can.
I mean,
tie it
I'm
into
pretty
the
certain,
lease.
I don't know if I'm speaking out of turn if Danny's still here, but I'm pretty certain that Public Works, if they're back there.
Danny's back there.
Yeah. Leases vehicles and does
Right.
monthly.
Yeah, we lease the larger ticket item, the $300,000 trucks will do 100 usually.
So, okay.
So maybe.
Does anyone else have any questions for Carrie?
Does that include the public?
No, there's no public comments.
Oh, okay, well, I'll check it later.
So, okay. Seeing none, you are done. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And next up is fire.
You better bend over a little deeper. I have a copy.
I know. In,
Temporary tattoo?
That's what I
Yeah, they're the same. Double amount.
Right?
He's giving out the same thing.
Eunice.
What, you gonna finish?
Yeah, good. Thanks.
Oh, they-
Yes.
they look like it.
They got the same
Temporary tattoo.
yeah.
Thank you, buddy. What's the front of our Explorer? Nice, okay.
So are these all the same?
Nope, there should be, do you have some more paper for us?
Okay. Okay, they're up on the top. I got it.
You have anything else? Already.
Well, these, no.
Okay, so priority one.
Well,
Priority is this one. More than one.
yeah, but they're right here. You have to look at them.
We're done.
Yeah.
Order? You're good. Thank you. One, power one. Oh, first priorities. Another four number ones. I have one priority, two priority one, three priority one, four priority one. And then I have, there's no priority one.
Oh, no. So I have,
Oh, no, they're double sided.
oh,
They're double sided.
well, that's just the explanation on the back. It's the same thing. On the back. It's the same item. It's
This?
Yeah.
That one is my, yeah, but that's public safety. Yeah.
Okay.
Got a lot of pages over here, a lot of pages.
All right. Who's presenting?
The combination, myself, Chief Colangelo, and the board.
Okay.
All right.
And your time starts now.
All right.
If
So
you come
thank-
in 10 minutes under, we'll give you a little bit of pop.
Little clearing. So thank you very much for your continued support of the fire department. As we all know, funds are limited, and you've been very gracious to us with equipment, with apparatus, and we truly appreciate that. Some highlights on that first page, just going to go off the memo that I made here with the letterhead. As you know, we're in the process of bringing our communications over to the state network. There's been some challenges, as we all are very much aware. We're working through those. Again, a lot of cooperation from our members. We now have 4 ambulances licensed through the state, 3 of which are advanced life support paramedic level certified. We fortunately have a steady flow of new members. All 4 companies every month submit applications for new members, which bodes well for the future of our department maintaining its volunteer status. That's not something you can say. If you look at our surrounding towns, some of them are closing stations and things like that, and we're very fortunate to have a strong volunteer corps. Our members go above and beyond, and again, it's not just going to calls and meetings and drills. We get a call to come to the library for a community relations event. We get all our apparatus there. Park and Rec, Touch a Truck, whatever the event is, the Santa Claus, tree light, whatever our members are asked of, they go above and beyond. These are guys volunteering, there are people volunteering their time. And the last most important bullet on that front thing, we save lives. At your meeting next week, you're going to recognize some folks who were involved in saving somebody's life. How cool it is to say that you found a person who was in cardiac arrest and you successfully resuscitated them. A team effort by all the parties involved, but again, it's a huge effort and a feather in everybody's cap that was there. Our operating budget, a couple noteworthy items on the bottom of that first page. We put $5,000 as a placeholder into a part-time in the fire marshal's office. What we're finding is a lot of the statutory requirements for inspections are not getting done with 2 part-time people. And we're going to try something like a per diem or a per inspection basis. We have some folks who are getting trained to be inspectors, code compliance, that sort of thing. And we're going to try to get them engaged to make sure that those annual inspections, those places of assembly that we're missing, get recognized and get inspected. The largest increase is our other contractual account, and that's driven by our physicals. Every year we have health screenings for all our members. Forever and ever we use Yale Occupational Health. They came out to the firehouses, did them on site. It really worked well. COVID came, their staffing got decimated. They no longer offer the on-site physicals. We had to find another source. We found a source for the 23-24 budget. It was a source that basically we were kind of in a rock and a hard place. We picked this company. The physicals that they did were good, but we felt it was time to look for an additional source. And working with Rory from Town Hall, we were approached by a company that's trying to get into the market to do firehouse physicals on site. And his pricing, quite honestly, was high, but that's all we had when we created the budget. So that's what the budget is predicated on, that higher price. We're hoping that our current operation may behoove us and we could use that going forward, but it's still, it's an unknown. It just started the process this year. So that's why we put that in there. Technical equipment, again, larger pieces of equipment, things that break. I referenced in there the Totoket Road fire. We lost one of the saws, $2,000, burned up. All right, so none of our items are cheap. You mentioned fire department, and an axe goes from $20 to $3,000. It's just craziness. The operating budget on the ambulance up a little bit as well. Again, driven by the contract with Northeast Fire Rescue. We enjoy a great relationship with the folks from Northeast Fire Rescue. We all blend together very well, our members and their members. A couple of their folks got recognized to become a battalion coordinator, and one of the other members became a lieutenant through them. The ambulance also enjoys the lower heating and other costs. We also offer once a month stop the bleed and hands-only CPR training. Basically for next to nothing. I think they charge like $5 a head for replacing the supplies. And they draw people from all over Connecticut to these courses, and in fact out of the state. Some people have come to these courses. It's not something that's offered regularly, and it's a really feather in our cap that David Burek invests the time once a month, every month, and does those classes. We had a high school student just go through as part of his capstone project. He did ambulance ride time, and again, everybody's looking forward to the kitchen renovations that Danny's working on for us to get that rocking for the increase in the kitchen. Again, going back to last year's budget, that building was built in 2003 as a volunteer house. We now have 4 people there 24/7, and the current kitchen arrangement just wasn't conducive to that and space for everybody and things like that. Capital projects, that's the pages you have in front of you. This is a repeat from last year. We had documentation from the vendor that maintains our Hearst tools that they were obsolete and that parts would be impossible to find. We put that in last year, and it's repeating this year again. Scott Packs, you'll see a separate sheet in front of you, one of the ones with the watermark for Scott Packs. I'll call Chief Colangelo up to talk about that. We have some thoughts about that as we're going forward.
Thank you, counselors, and thank you for the members of the department for being here tonight. I appreciate it and everything you guys do. Our current SCBA, or self-contained breathing apparatus, was purchased back in 2007 under an AFG grant. Right now, the current units have been in service probably almost 18 years. And NFPA recommends the replacement of these items within about 20-year mark. Last year alone, we spent over almost $12,000 just in repairs of these units. And that was not expected to go down. We are at least 2 revisions of NFPA standard pertaining to self-contained breathing apparatus beyond what we purchased these units at. Okay? And as your handout says, we have, they made some really good adjustments and modifications to the air packs, increased performance of the, and higher temperature ratings of the face piece that we wear. They changed the parameters and increased decibel levels of the pass device, that little alarm that goes off when the firefighter becomes disabled or incapacitated. Regulator performance is increased, data logging, emergency buddy breathing hoses. If something happens next to another firefighter, they can connect to each other and get out of a burning building or any other dangerous environment. So there's been a significant amount of increases to the safety and reliability of these units. And on top of that, they come with lifetime warranties for the main core components of the units. But like I said, we're trying to be proactive. We're spending $12,000 a year to repair these. They're going to be 18 years old. And we're looking at a probably 6 month to a year delivery date to replace those right now. So you're going to get actually even more time for those.
So we did apply for a Fire Act grant to get those replaced. It was in year 24-25 CIP. You did fund the $36,000 with the 5% of the town's portion. It's 95% through the grant, 5% on the town. So we're optimistic that we're going to get the grant. We're going to push as hard as we can to get the grant. The fallback that we're looking for is maybe some kind of a nod to say, okay, if the grant doesn't happen before the end of this fiscal year, could we use the $36,000 as a deposit and buy them, and then going back to the Carey question, finance them over 5 years, 4 years, whatever we decide to do for all the lease purchasing. Again, we're hopeful we'll get the grant, but we need to have a plan B just in case we don't get the grant. That's what that item talks about.
So how many units are we talking? You want
64.
64? So I know this came up when we replaced fire gear and, outfits, that when we replace them all at once, then they all come due at once.
Right.
Is there any way that you can stagger it so that they're not all in 1 year?
In most cases, I tend to agree with you, but when you get 2 different or 3 different versions of a breathing apparatus, there's different components.
Okay.
And that whole muscle memory thing, when they get into trouble or they're in a dark, smoky fire environment, one, like, we were to buy half right now. One would have a buddy breathing hose, the other one wouldn't.
Okay.
Different type of connections and fittings, and like I said, the safety components would be, we have 2 tiers, and that's just not a great idea. We could do that with SCBA cylinders.
Yeah.
We've done that with
So we bought cylinders.
We've done that with helmets, gloves, and all that stuff. Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah.
But when you replace apparatus SCBA like that, you really need to do it all at once.
Okay.
Just like a police officer, you won't have 2 separate types of guns. The same analogy. This is a vital piece of equipment. And we just want, like I said, be proactive with it.
The next one we're talking about is the gear washers. Through a Fire Act grant in 2003, we got a gear washer. It's currently located at Station 4, our ambulance building. This is designed as OSHA regulations become more stringent and the amount of firefighters getting cancer from the carcinogens on their gear, it really behooves us to make sure that our guys are washing their gear regularly. And to have to go to company 4 to do that isn't as convenient as we'd like it to be. If we had a gear washer in each station, it bodes to firefighter safety, which is obviously should be our paramount concern. Number 4, fire marshal and deputy fire marshal vehicles. The board put a number of $50,000 towards vehicles. I have some other thoughts. We did get some money from the fire marshal's vehicle that was crashed. We do have access to, going back to Ron's comment, the state surplus. They have an avenue where they sell vehicles. They give towns a first look at them. And as recently as December, I was looking, we had a Colorado pickup. It was like 70,000 miles on it. We got it for $6,105. So reasonable price. The way we've done with these vehicles from the state is you have to lock it in. They give you X amount of, they come back with a number. You have X amount of days to react to say, yeah, I want to do it. In the meantime, we send Barry up to Hartford to inspect it. If it meets everybody's approval, we move on it. So the key is to get money behind this to be able to do it. Having to come back to the board, to the council, everything else, to have just a pot of money there ready to go, kind of, if you want to say it that way. The Lucas, where's our friend Lucas? We're going to give you a little Lucas demonstration. Lund University Cardiac Arrest System. That's what Lucas stands for. This is a device that you're going to see if you ever had a call where we're doing CPR on a patient. One of the things, if you've ever done CPR training, you'll know how tiring it is and how inefficient maybe your compressions could be. This is a device that is mechanical. You set it in place, and by using the mechanical device, it now allows your paramedic to be starting a line, doing an airway, administering drugs, defibrillating. It'll go forever, right? Perfect compressions, no breaks, no stopping, no incorrect placement of your hands. It'll go forever. So this is one of the devices that we want to replace in our budget. We have one that's an older unit. That is, that's perfect. Thank you, Jim. That's Captain Buddha from the ambulance.
Can you put Mike on there to see what it does?
I'll end my night really fast.
Yeah. So this is, again, the Lucas that we're trying to replace. Again, it's a term that you may not know what it means or what it does. So I felt it was important to show you what a Lucas does. And again, if any cardiac arrest you're going to go on, you're going to see us working. This will be in place 9 times out of 10. Again, so it allows the paramedics to, whether they're starting a line in the guy's leg or airway or defibrillate, whatever they got to do, it frees them up. This one does it perfectly by itself. So that's the Lucas device. Thanks, Jim.
Anthony, when you show up at a site,
Yep.
how long does it take for when somebody pulls up in the car to actually get to somebody and get that running?
Depends how it gets dispatched to us. If the dispatcher says it's a cardiac arrest, this goes in automatically with us. We know bringing in the house, every company 1, 2, and 3, and 4, everybody has them.
Right.
So if it's dispatched as a cardiac arrest, first truck that's on scene that has one brings it right in the house. Or at the door, wherever it is.
But how
Do
long
they
is
have
it?
to be on the yeah?
No.
Oh.
Most times they're on the ground.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Right.
So
And the
you-
purpose why you have it, there's a bottom piece you can't really see from here. We all know you don't do CPR on a bed because it pushes down pushes the mattress. This gives you a firm surface on the bottom. So to do CPR, so it's compressing, again, the sternum to the spine, compressing the heart to get the blood flow out. So, again, if we don't know it's a cardiac arrest call, we go in the house and we see the guy's down, we don't go back out to the truck and get it, obviously. But if it comes in as a cardiac arrest, family's doing CPR, it goes in automatically with us. We have a couple things that we bring automatically in with us, and this is one of them.
And how much does that cost and how many do you need?
We only need one currently, even because there's one it's hard to find parts to replace it. I think it's
It's
18,000.
19,925.
19,925, $20,000.
That's not.
Yeah, it's not bad. And again, if you're the guy laying on the ground, it's well worth its weight in a 19,925, right?
So each house has one?
Yes. You bought them a couple years ago. Historically, the ambulances had them from the beginning. And then I think it was maybe 3 years ago, you guys funded company 1, 2, and 3 to have one. Again, to get it there as quick as possible.
Having rescues.
That was the whole premise. The board said, let's get them in the hands of people as fast as possible. Not wait for the ambulance to get there. Have the rescue bring them inside the house with them and get the ball rolling. So the board endorsed it, you guys blessed it, and now every 1, 2, and 3 have it as well.
And the life expectancy of this equipment?
How long is this one? Yeah.
First of all, I believe that price comes with a service plan from our
Frank,
vendor.
yep.
Usually the lifespan is about 10 years. And the one that is currently out of service being worked on is on the wrong side of about 10 years.
Beautiful. Any question about the Lucas? Jim put it away. Thanks, Council.
Thank you.
The next item,
We don't have enough.
Mayor mentioned is firefighting gear. Again, 10 years is our lifespan on gear. Every year we need to replace gear. We get new members. They're fitted, specifically to the member. Gear rips, breaks at the fire scenes. So that money is in there to again, keep the gear level up to date. The last item on there, I'll call Chief Colangelo back up again, is engine one. That's the separate sheet that you have in front of you as well with the other watermark. Talks about the need to replace that truck and the timeline and everything else.
Okay, so engine one was built in 1995. It's 30 years old. Built by a manufacturer called E1 down in Ocala, Florida. It's one of the leading sole source manufacturers, and we recently just purchased an engine from them as well. The current engine has got almost 49,000 miles on it already. Well over 4,000 engine hours. It does, the specification of vehicles, just in case you're wondering, is a 1,500 gallon minute pump, 1,000 gallon tank, holds 2,000 feet of supply hose, and a full complement of pre-connected lines and some other ancillary equipment. It's a very basic modest specification. We're not looking for anything that has a complement of rescue equipment or generators and specialty lighting or anything like that. Moving forward, the last year we spent over $10,000 in repairs on engine one. The year before that, over 18. The year before that, 21, 22, 9,226. Engine one was built in 91 under the 1991 standard NFPA. We have 3 standards or editions of that standard 1901 beyond what is current today with engine one. Now it's enhanced construction, rollover protection, they're more stable vehicle stability systems, anti-lock braking systems, better lighting, pressure governors for the fire pumps, which makes it more safer for the pump operator and the firefighters inside. Many new, 3 decades of renovations to the standard. The last engine we purchased was 2021, that was engine 3. The raw truck was 660. And this is, again, the remnants of COVID and the unprecedented increases in apparatus. No one predicted this. My peers in other departments had really good replacement programs and funding annually, and it blew everything out of the water. And out of 2024, we got an estimated cost. The last year we came to you to replace this truck. We had budget pricing for the raw truck. If we were to duplicate engine 3 as it was, just to have a budgetary number, that went from 660 to 880. No one predicted that. It's very difficult. Today, the projected cost for an engine to meet that specification is about $950,000. I not think I'd see that in my career for an engine. Engine one's 30 years old now. If we were to order a truck right now, it's going to take probably 2 years, if not more, to get that truck into town. So engine one will be 32 years old.
I think the keynote on that is at the bottom of that second page. If you look at the history of the frontline piece at Station 1, Company 1 started in 1938. They had a Diamond T. It's still sitting in the firehouse if you want to go look at it. It was replaced, but in 1958, a 20-year span. That was replaced with a 75 Han, a 17-year span. That was replaced with a 95 E1, a 20-year span. So we were doing really good. We had a decent program where they were replaced regularly, 20 years, again, as NFPA changes, increases things. And obviously the numbers have exploded, as Chief Colangelo mentioned. The pricing, obviously, $1 million for an apparatus is not something to sneeze at. But it's all, I'm sure what we paid for that, the Han in 75 probably seemed a lot at that point. It's all relative, compared to what money was back then. I know we talked about this for 100 years about having a decent reserve policy, whether it's public works reserve or fire reserve. The town needs to commit X amount of dollars a year and put it into a pot so that when the time comes to replace engine 1, engine 2, whatever is next in line, you have money built up. And we're not faced with this agita about where we're getting this money from. If we have a nice policy where we budget periodically, set amounts, whether it's public works reserve, we have multiple reserves, we're trying to, fund I think that makes the most fiscal sense. Again, the challenge is always, how does that impact the mill rate? That's what it all boils down to. And I think it's kind of short-sighted to focus on the mill rate totally without looking at the big picture. You're going to have to replace trucks eventually. All right? There's always going to be a replacement, whether it's 5 years away, whatever the number next one happens to be. You need to have money built up. So you're not with this same situation again where it's like, oh my God, we got to come up with $1 million. Or who knows what that's going to be at that point in time. But again, it's something that we feel strongly about. And again, I think, the support of the members behind us today really shows to the feeling that we really need this truck replaced. And I think it'd go a long way to, getting us on a safe track. Not that engine one's not safe. As Chief mentioned, we spend a lot of money repairing the trucks. If you looked at the truck today, you'd say, wow, this truck's really good condition. And it is. We keep them clean, we maintain them. You look at them, they're beautiful looking trucks.
Could you unload it?
But they're getting, say again?
Could you unload it if we were to get a new one? Could you unload engine one?
There's a possibility of either the current one we use as a reserve, or this one has, you're not gonna have two reserves.
Obviously.
So one of those could definitely go. What can you get for it? As we learned from our tower truck situation, you're not gonna get a ton of money, the way things are, the way we've had good luck with that, or luck with that, I should say. But yeah, you would definitely get rid of one of those reserve pieces. You wouldn't keep two reserve pieces.
I think a big keynote here that we're missing here, we bought engine 3 4 years ago. Engine 3 is coming off a lease this year. So if putting the money in is not killing us right now as a capital project, and we just keep putting in the same money, we'll be able to buy engine 1. And obviously, if it takes 2 years for it to come in, we'll have like $500,000 in that reserve. If we just keep putting the same amount of money in. Because engine 3 is coming off.
But what is projected here is not what we put in this current year, so this is an increase. On this right here,
right.
This $500,000, putting in $500,000, that's not, or 550?
550.
That's not what we have in this fiscal year, so.
Right, this is 25, 26.
I know, that's what I'm saying. But
Yeah.
we,
I see
but
what
in
you're
the
saying.
current
I see
year,
what you're saying.
we're not at 550.
Right.
So we aren't, this is not a proposal to stay the same.
Right,
So that's what we have to look at.
you're right.
Yeah, but I mean, I just wanted to stress the point that engine 3 was coming off a lease, so
Yeah.
you are putting something in there for engine 3 right now, so.
Yeah, but we didn't have the tower. So we didn't have the tower because we paid the first payment on the tower
Yeah, but
out of ARPA.
last
So-
year we had both of them. Last year we had the tower and engine 3 on the lease purchase, right?
Right,
And
and the ambulance 44.
on there.
Yeah.
So we didn't have all of this in the current.
I know what you're saying, yep, you're
In the
correct.
current budget year, so it's not apples to apples. If it was, yes, then it would make sense. So in just seeing this right now and
Yeah.
not seeing the whole capital for all departments,
Yeah.
it's really hard for us to assess what this looks like. One of my questions would be, I know because this worked with the tower, in order to get the order in, you have to put a deposit in, and that secures your price.
Correct.
And even though it takes 2 years for it to get, we don't necessarily have to make any payments on that for 2 years.
Depends how you structure the lease payments. Typically, we do advance payments. We could do payments in arrears, so it would wait a year to start.
I mean, just because we have the Tower 1 payments
Right.
in here of $220,000. So to put that in and then another lease payment of $270,
Right.
you're close to $500,000
Right.
in 1 year, which is not what we have right now. So that's what we have to look at. And it's not just fire, because we have public works, we have other major departments. And so that's why I was just wondering.
No, you're right.
I know about securing the price on it, but then do we necessarily have to make the payments right away just so that we can reduce some of those?
Yeah. We could check their different funding options, different funding models. Again, the way we've typically done them was the advance funding, where we sign the payments agreement in July and we start making the payments as Danny can attest to, we were probably 3 years into a 4-year lease for his truck that just came in. So again, it's the same kind of logic where you're paying as soon as the bank obligates the money, the clock starts.
But,
And
you know, so that you're saying the minimum is 2 years, but it could be out to 4 years.
for the build,
For the build.
but it depends on,
Typically, engines have been, I can get a more accurate number from the manufacturers, but they're all varied depending on the type of apparatus. But 2-year mark for an engine is about right.
Okay.
Have you explored
The
any
whole
spec
idea
trucks?
is to lock into this price point because I don't even know where this is going with quads.
So there's no guarantee that we would have to make the payments.
Depends how you structure it.
Just
Yeah,
just
depends
put
how you
the
structure it.
deposit down,
Yeah.
and then in 2 years, so in 2 years, what's coming off the books?
Nothing,
Nothing.
but we're close to getting Tower 1 off.
At
You know,
that
we have less payments on Tower 1 at that point in time.
Right, so.
But we have to look at the whole picture, and we have
Oh,
to,
absolutely.
and one of the things that we will have to discuss during, you know, our budget session is are we going to commit to a, reserve, an equipment reserve? And that's what Anthony was talking
You know,
about.
rainy day fund?
Well, it's not really a rainy day fund.
No, I
I
know
mean,
it.
it's an equipment reserve
So that you're
that,
not
because
constantly doing these big purchases.
I know.
you have fire
That's the right way to
and
do it.
public works. I mean, those
I've
are
talked about
two
it.
very, very expensive.
And moving forward, if you guys decide to do that, it's fantastic, and hopefully everything plateaus with the cost of these apparatus. It's insane.
I think the 2002, when we bought engine 2002, we paid cash for it. Because the prior train of thought, let's call it, was to put money aside. So when that one came due in 2002, we paid cash. We had money in the reserve.
Have you guys located or looked into any spec trucks? I know it doesn't happen as much for
They
engines
are
because
almost
they're,
non-existent. A lot of the departments are scoffing these up because of the build times.
yeah.
And they're not even in production yet. They just went through the engineering and the drawings. And they're not even on the assembly line. But people are buying these trucks right about, like we did with Power One.
Yeah.
With the extended build times, saving a little money in engineering, because they already did that. Production trucks are very far and few between right now. And I know we broached the subject of refurbishment. Refurbishment of a 30-year-old truck is just not practical. If you look at, if you talk to most manufacturers, most mechanics, or apparatus mechanics, I should say, and literature suggests anything beyond the 15-year mark, it's just not practical anymore.
Yeah.
And I usually do that with big fleets and stuff like that. We're just simply not there. We're way beyond that. Way beyond that. You're going to get 32 years out of engine one. I know it's a lot of money, but you know we really need that some consideration.
How many calls has this done?
5. No, what's
The last sheet, I
have the sheets through 23.
And also, is this because it's engine number one, has this done the most calls? Is this the engine that does the most
Engine one is
calls?
because it's in company one.
Yeah.
That's why it's
your
engine
district,
one.
yeah.
But in the 22-23 year, engine one did 180 calls, engine two did 68 calls, engine three did 47 calls. So almost 3 times the amount at the next apparatus.
And how many times has it been down?
don't have a list in front of me, but it's been down. A lot.
So when it goes, you can pull data to get that, but I will tell you this, it's more than I'm comfortable with, and thank God we have the spare engine. It goes between company 3 and company 1.
Right, so.
It's on autopilot.
And these poor guys gotta go up there and get it every time.
But why is it going between company 3 and company 1 if company 3 got the newest engine?
That's where they keep it. That's where it's stored.
Yeah, there's a bay there for it.
Oh, I thought you meant you were using it at
No,
company
that's
3 with 47 calls on the newest engine. It's like, why are we using
And
the
that's filled in
reserve?
for engine 3, we'll leave that, you know.
Yeah.
Things happen, you know,
Okay.
a lot of electronics, very intricate, but yeah.
And I know we've talked about this and just want to hear why we can't rotate.
Even if we rotated.
Rotate, usage, company 1, company 3, company 2, kind of rotate them around, and what's the issue with that?
I think it's a significant morale issue. I think people have pride in their company's trucks. This is company 1's, this is company 2's, this is company 3's trucks, and I think it's a sense of pride. They outfit them the way that they want them.
But why don't we all outfit them all the same?
Because they're different trucks. Get a patch. I mean, the engine 1 is a 95, right? Engine 2 is a 2002, engine 3 is a 21. They're all different compartments, all different compartmentation. Should we standardize? In the ideal world, sure. We buy one platform, as Chief mentioned. If we went by the engine 3 and became that as the model engine, then you're right. Maybe you could rotate things and keep them all kind
Well, that's why, since that's our newest truck is 21, I'm not saying to go back to how the 95 is equipped, but if 21 is our newest,
right.
Because what I look at all of the engines as being town. It's all North Branford. It's town equipment, and not specific to a company, because it's all town equipment.
Yeah.
So why can't it be standardized?
Well, actually, it is specific. I mean, Company 1 does more accidents, their possibility of having truck accident, large trucks because of Philcon. So they're geared up for their area, you know what I mean? Where Company 3 is probably more geared up towards brush fires and because, they're like more of a rural. So, I mean, that's why their compartments. Company 1 carries more, like rescue tools because they're having major accidents is more, and I don't want to say Company 3 can't have a major accident. That's not what I'm saying, but truck traffic going up and down Route 80. So Route 80 and their medical calls is 3 times what Company 3's is. So Company 3 probably geared up for a little less of something else and more of something else, where Company 1 is geared up.
It's geared up for the demographic.
Yeah, it's really a demographic. So, and going back to the Scots, you say you want to have all the Scots the same. So, I mean, the guys from Company 1 want to have their, so if you bring Company 3's truck down there, and now, if they're at a fire or something, they know in this compartment on engine 1 is a certain tool. Now they go to engine 3 and they open that compartment and that tool's not there.
Well, that's why
it's on a different.
Well, that's why they were talking about standardization. So that's why I was just wondering if that is possible.
But like the demographics are different, so the Company 1 probably carries more stuff than Company 3. I mean, it's really. No department that I don't know about Wallingford, but any department that I was associated, none of the engines are standardized. It's standardized to your area, you know what I mean? Even if you got like a high-rise area more than another company, you got a high-rise compartment, where somebody else is not gonna have that compartment.
Some of the bigger county-wide fire departments do stuff like that, which makes sense in a lot of situations. Those are career departments. They usually have a larger committee-based approach to it from various areas in that jurisdiction. But in this situation, a 32-year-old truck's a 32-year-old truck, no matter where you put it. But then the pride of ownership thing, I know, and I appreciate this as a taxpayer, would be more efficient, more effective, but I think at all volunteer fire department to tell Company 1 they're getting engine 3, and then engine 3 is going to get engine 1, it's not going to be a very
won't be pretty.
Be a very contentious environment, I think. And I came up through the ranks of the volunteers as well, and I get that part of it. But all the engines do meet certain specifications as far as what we need in the town, the size water tank, the size pump, the amount of hose it carries, all the pre-connected lines are the same. So we do standardize a lot of things on them, but sometimes the compartment layout is a lot different based on the version. I mean, the trucks are decades apart, so things change. Again, we talk about NFPA and there's different standards and size of compartments, the size of the apparatus. These things are just getting huge. So you're evolving all the time.
There's no state or federal grants for equipment?
You could try for a fire act grant. Try for a fire grant. I mean,
Or you get onto consortium spend, purchasing. The lease purchase is nice because we're used to that, and we can lock it to a good price point and get right into it. We're already waiting for AFG grant for the SCBA. I don't know what that's going to do for us.
But you're allowed up to $1 million a year. You're allowed to receive as a grant. So, 95.5. So, we missed this year's window. Obviously, we went for the air packs in this year's window. So it would be, if you want, it would be next year, the earliest you could apply for it.
Who does the applications?
Myself and the chiefs, Bob and Mark, Chief Colangelo and Chief Amatrudo, we all collaborate on those and put them together.
Is there a specific time of the year that you have to do them, or?
I think it was December was the deadline to file.
So you applied for the one thing and you're waiting to hear. So
Correct.
we're kind of at the limit for this year.
Correct.
If we put a deposit on the fire truck, but didn't do the lease, could you apply next year for this truck now? That if we put it in this year?
I have to check, to be honest with you. I don't have a real answer for you. I could check.
The rules change every time.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they have different things that they focus on as well. They rank them high, low, and medium priority. And they focus, if it says if it's either low or medium, don't even bother applying.
Okay.
An apparatus is typically tight because of the dollars involved, so the competition for apparatus is more severe. Chief Marcarelli in East Haven got one maybe 5-6 years ago. His Engine 3 in Foxton came through a Fire Act grant. So it's out there. It's a possibility.
Something to look at. Chief, the new number, the 950-ish, what did you use for the basis of that?
We used the current specification of Engine 3.
Okay.
And basically today's pricing.
Okay. One thing I'll just throw out there, just Walt, please feel free to chime in. I just know my new career that I'm in now, I keep hearing about the tariffs and the steel and everything else and how the costs are expected to inflate quite a bit. And I'm sure that, a truck of that size, it would significantly affect that moving forward too. So I just think we should take that into consideration as well.
That's a valid point.
It's that delivery time, the age of the vehicle, what we're spending per year.
Yeah, you could do different funding vehicles.
Explain that.
Yeah, you could fund it over 4 years, 5 years, and
And even if we get the truck in 2 years, you can still make payments the 3rd year and the 4th year. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, well, that's what that, well,
That's what
that's,
I'm saying. We don't have to pay it in 2 years. We can pay it off in 5 years.
well, yeah, and the question was,
Oh, she's saying-
we don't pay in the beginning. We don't pay the first 2 years. We can still do a 5-year lease.
That's correct.
And you pick it up when you get the truck and then it's 5 years after that.
Okay, yeah.
That was,
If you don't mind me, guys, asking you a hard question. If you were to get one or the other, the air packs or the new engine, which one would you want?
The engine.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's good.
It's just that lately, it's just been, I hate to say it, but it's been going off duty. It's been going out of service an awful lot lately. And then we had the spare, and there was a couple of days where both of them were off duty. So the most important thing right now is the engine. Because now when you got both of them off duty,
so when would you find out on the grant for the,
I can research that. I can
okay, you can just,
get some information about the grant timeline and stuff.
right.
There's different phases. There's a review process, then it makes it to a scoring process, and then there's different steps along the road. But I can find out where.
Do you know, as it goes through, do you know where you're at, or do you wait, or is it at the end you find out?
Typically at the end, they'll give you either a yay or nay.
So you don't know where you're
Yeah,
at?
I can research it. I'm going to get the information. Yeah.
If you're awarded a grant this year, are you handicapped in going in for a grant the
No.
following?
It's
You
a
can go
million
$1 million
next year,
a year you can go after.
regardless, okay. But it doesn't play against you at all? You can, okay,
Especially if different categories.
yeah.
The SCBA is one category,
Yeah.
where the apparatus is a different category. So
Good.
Does anyone else have any questions for fire? Okay. All right, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So our next budget workshop will be March 25th. And that one will be the Board of Ed, Public Works, and Library on that night. Next week is our regular council meeting. And so there's no budget discussion next week at all. Yep, all budget meetings are held here except for the public hearing on April 1st. That will be at North Branford High School cafeteria, and they all start at 6:30.
The 25th is high school.
No, 25th is here. Okay.
Yeah, that's,
Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Okay, thank you.